When it comes to Omaha storms, the May 6th tornado stands out nearly 4 decades later.
The 1975 EF4 twister cut a path of demolition that's hard to believe. Starting near 108th and Giles, moving through Wellston, up to 84th and L, it traveled north across I-80 through the Westgate neighborhood, eventually crossing 72nd and Dodge and heading farther north until reaching Benson Park.
KMTV meteorologist Jim Flowers shows us the impact of the killer tornado 40 years later.
30 minutes in May. That's all the time it took to change the landscape in Omaha and to leave an indelible mark on the memories of those who lived through it. The May 6, 1975 tornado left 3 people dead, 130 injured, and experts at the time called it the most expensive tornado in U.S. history, one that is still talked about 40 years later.
It's seared into your brain. It really is.
George Matuella ran the National Weather Service's radar that day. The storm did not catch them by surprise.
Jim Zoller came in around 7:30 and he says, boy, it's going to be one heck of a day.
Operating an old school Navy radar, Matuella watched as the storm moved closer. Then he spotted a hook echo.
I said, get the tornado tape. He says, are you kidding me? I says, no, I have a hook. I said, a really genuine, bona fide hook. Right. And he sent it out, and that was it.
No, we don't have an all clear bulletin as yet. We are still.
The next few moments proved they'd made the right decision. Louis Coomer saw that firsthand.
My wife and I had walked out of the hospital to go home, and we looked off to the southwest and we saw this huge cloud. And I didn't know that if the people at the hospital knew that this tornado was headed for the hospital.
Coomer warned the hospital, but then realized his wife remained outside. Both quickly got in their car.
The doggone tornado hit the car, and lucky enough it didn't pick the car up. It took out all the glass.
Coomer says 30 seconds later the twister vanished. Then the real work began.
I was just surprised that the place was even standing. Lucky enough the intercom system was still working. And as I walked into the hospital, I don't know if someone saw me or not, they said, Louis, report to the ICU stat.
Yeah. Coomer worked the rest of the day, even helping move patients from parts of the hospital that were left in ruins. A familiar scene around much of Omaha.
People are walking around, they're kind of dazed. I mean, having a tornado come up 72nd Street, and we were...
It was going right at you guys.
It was going right at us.
Almost immediately, Bergen staff started juggling treating patients and cleaning up.
I tell people that we always had internal and external disasters. This is the first time we had both of them at the same time for real.
The recovery took years, but the city moved forward.
And they really cleaned it up. Mayor Zirinsky did a good job. Everybody in Omaha, they should be very proud of how they responded. Yeah. Seriously. Okay. Absolutely.
The damage from that tornado at the time in those dollars was roughly 200 to 250 million. In current dollars, that would translate to $1 billion in damage. And at the time, I mentioned this in the story, it was the costliest tornado in U.S. history when it hit Omaha.
And in the aftermath, obviously, it was all hands on deck. 3 people died. It was the early warning key in making sure that more didn't perish.
What happened that day, Craig, was there were actually two F3s and an F4 that had already touched down in northeast Nebraska. So there were warnings already going out. Fortunately, the schools had already left out. The tornado hit began at 4:29. It lifted just before 5 o'clock. And so people were already in a position to receive the warnings, but there were a number of warnings that actually preceded that tornado. So people were already weather aware before that tornado ever hit the ground. And I think that helped and made a big difference.
Seeing those debris piles in that video, just incredible.
Yeah. I mean, everybody had said the same thing. It's like it just happened yesterday. Those memories are just seared and they never leave you.
All right, thanks, Jim. And you can find extended interviews from Jim's story on our website, KMTV.com. There are also archive videos and photos from the moments that followed the deadly disaster in Omaha 40 years ago.